France is the final stop for riders in the 2017 FIM X-Trial World Championship, with 2 events in successive weeks providing the climax to the title fight. The venue for the third round of the campaign is Marseille, where series leader Tony Bow hasn't been beaten since all the way back in 2010. Round 2 of the campaign took the riders towards the eastern border of Austria and to Vienna Neustadt's 5,000 capacity Arena Nova. Franz Kadlec finished bottom of the permanent riders with fiascos in 4 of the 6 qualifying sections. The German avoided last position thanks to a battling performance in section 4 to overhaul wildcard Joris Gubion. The main surprise of the weekend was a 6th position finish for Takehisa Fujinami, with 2 drop marks in the opening section proving crucial in his drop behind James Dayville. The British rider sat 2 marks up on the Japanese contender after cleans in the opening 2 sections, but missed out on progression to the final with a crucial failure in section 3, which was completed successfully by all 4 of the riders who made it through. So there was no change to the final quartet, but there was a change to the pecking order compared to Barcelona. Gironi Fajardo missed out on the podium with a maximum score in the final. Fajardo's score reflected the extreme difficulty level of the final, in which 3 of the riders were only separated by performances through section 3. Albert Cabastan was the first rider other than Tony Bow to make it through any of the final sections, taking a 3-mark advantage over Fajardo in the process. But Adam Raga went one better with a single-mark score in the same section, before successively failing the remainder as the bottom trio was separated by just 4 marks. Section design in Vienna Neustadt seemed perfectly suited to Tony Bow, who had the lead after a clean in a section 1 that the other 3 had failed. And he had victory with 2 rides to spare after Adam Raga failed section 5 and dropped 11 marks in arrears. A 50th career win for Tony Bow and a 3rd successive victory in Vienna Neustadt for the reigning champion. The X-Trial World Championship is well known as a mental battle, man under pressure against the section as much as against one another. And few know more about the sport's psychological wars than Albert Cabastan and Gironi Fajardo, who between them have occupied 3rd and 4th positions in the X-Trial World Championship for 3 of the last 4 seasons. I battle with the sections and with myself, so the first thing I look for is that sensation of feeling good on the bike. And afterwards they compare how well you've done to your rivals, but it isn't a direct match-up. So you try to complete the section in a more conservative way or not, depending on the situation. In the end, what matters is the moment that you're in the section, just that moment, and the feeling that's transmitted in the instant. So anything you can do in advance to prepare for the situation helps towards the little things that can make the difference. The competition is really concentrated. In very few minutes you have to give it everything, and I think that's what makes it difficult, having to focus on one specific moment. It's quite stressful in the sense that there are only 4 dates on the calendar, and in each of those there's a lot of pressure. When you're fighting for position in qualifying, or when you're in the final and there are only 5 sections, any small difference can stop you from making the final, and once you're in the final, you're fighting for the podium. At the moment, my direct rival is Gironi Fajardo, so the idea is to beat him to achieve the ultimate goal of a podium. But at the start of a race, there are many things in your head, more than just one rider, and you have to go step by step, because if you get ahead of yourself, you can find yourself out of the final altogether. It's a little bit different being able to watch the other riders. In some cases it helps, but in others it adds pressure. We try to take advantage of it to clear up how to get through the sections, to clear any doubts or psychological problems that you have when that isn't clear. In the end, watching other riders often makes it very obvious how you have to get through the section. But if a direct rival goes out before you and has a very good lap, that can add pressure, knowing that you're up and you can't afford to fail.
y haga una muy buena vuelta, pues también te puede añadir mucha presión el hecho que tienes que salir tú, te toca y sabes que no puedes fallar.
The latest Marseille X-Trial is the 17th staging of an FIM Grand Prix in the city and the 4th consecutive season that a round has taken place in the Palais des Sports de Marseille. Despite no French rider being a part of the lineup in 2017, fans flocked to the arena to witness the penultimate round of the campaign. The only new addition to the lineup in Marseille was Spanish wildcard Jaime Busto, the 19-year-old making his second appearance of the campaign after a 5th position finish in Barcelona. In his first full season in the X-Trial World Championship, Franz Kadlec was yet to beat any of the other permanent riders coming into Marseille. And avoiding the wooden spoon once again would be his main target at the French Grand Prix, in direct competition with wildcard Jaime Busto in the opening pair. It was a strong start for the German, who successfully completed the first section of qualifying, albeit with 2 drop marks for leaning early in the course, a total of 3. Jaime Busto missed out on qualification by just 2 marks in his only previous 2017 appearance, despite the undoubted challenge of tackling the sections in the first pair, and had high hopes of progressing to the final for the first time in his career. But his luck got off to a poor start with a Section 1 failure, the Spaniard dropping immediately behind Franz Kadlec. The German failed to take advantage though as he dropped to a fiasco in Section 2, the youngster unlucky after battling through well, but with an accumulation of marks on observation and on time. Entering each section first after losing out to Jaime Busto in the double-lane race certainly posed difficulties for Kadlec, who had even paved the way for his former Trial 2 rival by making it to the end of Section 2, albeit unsuccessfully. The first of 3 successive failures that seemingly ruled him out of contention for a place in the final.
Et c'est un échec pour France. Alors on peut l'applaudir très très fort, cette zone très très haute. Même si c'est un échec, je vous assure qu'on peut l'applaudir très très fort.
Jaime Busto, by contrast, turned his day around after an unsuccessful opening outing. The Basque youngster completed Section 2 with much greater alacrity than Franz Kadlec, still losing a mark on time, but avoiding any dropped marks on observation to move back in front of his direct rival. And his Section 3 performance proved equally pivotal in reversing his fortunes. None of the riders who failed to make the final successfully completed the section, mostly caught out by the opening step on which Busto excelled on the back wheel. A sign of things to come from Jaime Busto, a rider much touted for future World Championship success, but who struggled in past X-Trial appearances. At the end of another difficult day, Franz Kadlec enjoyed some consolation with a second successfully completed section, but finishing the lap just 4 marks from maximum score, he already had little hope of a place in the final. The four pairings in Marseille were the same as in Barcelona, with only Takehisa Fujinami's mere 6th position an unexpected result in the Palau San Jordi. But James Dable's ranking above the Japanese rider in the overall standings was short-lived, as Fujinami came out on top in their latest encounter. With Jaime Busto setting a 12-mark lap in the previous pair, a clear and challenging target had been set for the remaining riders. James Dable had moved 2 marks up on Jaime Busto's opening section effort, but then failed section 2 and left himself with a mere 4-mark margin for error in the remaining sections. Takehisa Fujinami, meanwhile, completed section 2 and kept himself level with Jaime Busto's 6-mark tally at the same point, but he'd missed out on an opportunity to put himself in a much stronger position to make the final after an opening section fiasco. James Dable dropped behind Jaime Busto's target tally as he became the 2nd rider to fail section 3, a result that left him on 13, the same total as Franz Kadlec at the same points. Fujinami held a 2-mark advantage over Dable thanks to his superior Section 2 performance, but like the British rider, failed Section 3. And with each of the first 4 riders out, all failing Section 4, both Dable and Fujinami were left with 3 failed sections compared to only 2 for Jaime Busto, and the youngster remained above both. The Japanese veteran's wait for a first podium since 2013 looked set to continue. Now James Dable's main battle was with Franz Kadlec, with his score chart an exact match of the Germans coming into the final section. Dable needed to better Kadlec's 3-mark total through the stones to avoid dropping provisionally into the basement position. The British rider survived the pressure to match Jaime Busto's Section 5 clean and remain above Kadlec in 3rd. But with 4 riders still to come, Dable looked destined for 7th place. The last 2 pairings in the X-Trial qualification format always have the advantage of knowing what total will guarantee a place in the final 4, and it was Jaime Busto's 12-mark tally that still sat as the best effort from the opening 2 pairs as Jeroni Fajardo and Albert Cabestan took to the arena floor in Marseille. Promising start for the Vertigo representative saw him notch just a single mark in Section 1, the best performance of the day at this stage through the trunks. 4 marks up on where Jaime Busto had been after Section 1. Fajardo now needed to minimise errors in Sections 2 and 3, where James Dable and Takehisa Fujinami had lost out to the youngster, but becoming the 3rd rider to fail Section 2. Falling from the first step of the section was the crucial moment in what ultimately proved an unsuccessful attempt at making a 3rd final of the campaign for Fajardo. Albert Cabestan had no such problems through Section 2 and effectively separated himself out from the pack by virtue of becoming the first rider through clean. Cabestan sat on just a single mark after 2 sections. Busto, Fujinami and Fajardo had all accrued 6 marks at the same stage.
Allez, moins de 10 secondes pour terminer la zone. Moins de 10 secondes pour terminer la zone. Attention.
Gironi Fajardo now had only 5 marks to play with to guarantee a place above Jaime Busto and into the final 4, but used them all up on Section 3, leaving Busto still the only rider to have made it successfully through the rocks. And with none of the riders having got the better of Section 4, Fajardo dropped below his fellow countrymen in the standings and would have to hope for errors from the remaining riders out on the arena floor. Albert Cabestan made no such mistakes, outperforming Jaime Busto on 3 of the sections and matching him on the other 2. The veteran had his place in the final all but secure after Section 3, as he accrued just a single mark on time by failing to meet the 60-second timer by little more than a second. In his 2 remaining outings, and with his place in the final now guaranteed after Fajardo's Section 4 fiasco, Cabestan's battle was for seeding position to the double-lane races, deciding the starting order for the final. And the veteran finished with his best qualifying result of the season, a highly competitive mere 4-mark score. He was the first rider through Section 4, crossing the step that had caused his predecessors problems with a single mark for leaning and recording a section total of 2 marks. A clean final section then left him an emphatic 8 marks clear of Jaime Busto, guaranteed a place in the final alongside the Basque youngster. Tony Bow and Adam Raga was the final pair to tackle the sections in Marseille. Traditional last qualifiers needing to better 16 marks to guarantee progression to the final. There was little doubt as to whether the 2 championship favourites would achieve that. They were 5 marks clear of the non-qualifiers in Barcelona and 9 up on 5th position in Vienna Neustadt. A strong start for each of them, clean through the opening 3 sections. Bow first to clean sections 1 and 3, and Raga then taking advantage of his earlier double-lane victory by replicating the 10 times world champions' rides. Under pressure to remain on top, and on the only section that consistently challenged all of the riders through qualifying, Bow fell to his first and ultimately only fiasco of the lap. The 5-mark score left Bow behind Albert Cabestan and also gave Adam Raga an opportunity to top the score charts and qualify directly to the 3rd double-lane race. Successfully passing the step that had caught out all but Albert Cabestan on Section 4, Raga matched the Sherco rider with a 2-mark score and already sat 2 clear thanks to cleans in sections 1 and 3. That result meant that anything better than a 2-mark tally from Section 5 would give him top spot in qualifying, and since only Franz Kadlec had dropped any marks on the section previously, it was no great surprise that Adam Raga took a comfortable clean to finish the lap on 2 and top ahead of Albert Cabestan and Tony Bow. All that remained in qualifying was to separate Gironi Fajardo and Takehisa Fujinami, who had both finished on 16 marks with 3 fiascos apiece. That tiebreak took the form of a double-lane race to decide 5th position and the first of the non-qualifiers. The pair were again evenly matched through the first half of the race, but Fujinami broke ahead at the turn and got a better run into the closing stages of the course to finish the race winner and take 5th position. Jaime Busto's excellent lap and Takehisa Fujinami's double-lane victory relegated Gironi Fajardo to his worst result since 2014. The trial was quite good and the sections were accessible, as Cabes, Tony and Adam proved. But I'm very disappointed. We prepared very well for this race. The whole team worked hard to arrive at our best.
Todo el equipo hace un gran trabajo para llegar al
But
día de la
this time
carrera
I failed
al
too
100%,
often.
y así
I'm
es,
very
¿no?
angry
Pero
with
en
my
esta
riding
ocasión,
this
pues,
weekend,
yo he
making a
fallado
lot of
muchísimo,
stupid mistakes
estoy
throughout
muy
the lap.
enfadado con mi
And
pilotaje
riding like that, you certainly
este fin de
can't battle
semana,
with Albert, Tony,
cometiendo
Adam,
errores,
or even Jaime, who put in a pretty good lap.
durante toda la primera vuelta, ¿no? Y bueno, así está claro que no se puede batallar con un Albert, Tony, Adam o incluso Jaime ha hecho una vuelta bastante buena.
I'm not very happy because of fiascos in 3 sections. I was fighting again for a place in the final, but 2 of those failures really cost me. In the end, 5th position isn't a great result, but it is my best result of the year. And now we will fight at our maximum for the last race of the season next week.
まあそうですね、次につながるいいレースができたと思うんで、次こそは最終戦頑張りたいと思います。
The same 3 riders have made it to the podium in each of the last 9 X-Trail Grand Prix in Marseille. Can Jaime Busto change that as he makes his Final 4 debut tonight? Lining up for the first of 3 double-lane races to decide seeding order for the final. The winner stays on. The defeated rider will go first through the sections. It's Tony Bow versus Jaime Busto. Teammates, of course, but in direct conflict for the first time in the final. It's Tony Bow who's made the slightly faster start. Jaime Busto legs flailing as he made it through the turn. He's pulled back a little bit of ground on Tony Bow, but it is the reigning world champion who still edges it. And Tony Bow, who had to appear in the first double-lane race after finishing only 3rd in qualifying following that Section 4 failure, manages to get the better of Busto and move up to the 2nd double-lane race. Jaime Busto, the debutant in terms of final appearances in the X-Trail World Championship, will be first out. And Tony Bow now looking set to get the better of Albert Cabestan. If anything, even more comfortable so far than he was against Jaime Busto as Cabestan gets himself caught. And that's going to decide it in favour of Tony Bow. Cabestan won't even complete the double lane race as Bow marches on. So now it's up to Adam Raga to see if he can become the first rider to get the better of Tony Bow in these 3 double-lane races to decide the seeding order for the final. Raga versus Bow then to decide the last rider out, the advantageous last starting position for the final. Evenly matched so far. It's Bow versus Raga. Bow just nudging ahead at the turn. Raga pulling almost level, but Bow then finds some extra power and shrinks away, and Tony Bow wins the double-lane races and has reversed that disappointment of finishing only 3rd in qualifying, as he will be the top seed to the final. The smallest number of sections at any of the rounds this season so far, with just 5 for the final in Marseille, compared to 8 for the final in Barcelona. That's a lot more pressure on each ride here in Marseille. Jaime Busto first up in section 1. He's already dropped 1 mark for leaning, just making it up to the top of that step, but using the sump on the base of the machine. A slalom of horizontal trunks leading up to the section's main vertical log step. It's section 1, the trunks. Tony Bow, Adam Raga and Gironi Fajardo all won their first X-Trials aged 19. Can Busto follow that trend here tonight? Just making the last of those turns. This one perhaps the most complicated, steep and uneven surface as well. 2 marks dropped so far and Busto slips back. He's got a foot down. That's already 3 marks. Yes, he's out of it. It's a failure on section 1 for Jaime Busto. Albert Cabestan next out. Twice a winner of the French Grand Prix, here in Marseille in 2009 and 2010. The veteran has only won a single round at world level since then. Looking to shore up his place in 3rd in the world tonight, taking advantage of Gironi Fajardo's elimination before the final. And with an opportunity to immediately go above Jaime Busto in the battle for the podium here tonight, with Busto putting in a 5-mark score first time out. Albert Cabestan next up. Knows exactly where Busto got himself wedged trying to make it up the last of the turns here. And this is the exact moment that Busto got himself caught. Cabestan takes it from slightly further back, and now he's going to have to try and launch himself up, which he does successfully. So without a drop mark, just as I say that, curse the commentator, Cabestan slips back and the left leg makes a dab. That's going to be a single mark then for Albert Cabestan. This is the step that I was talking about, the vertical trunk. This is going to pose the biggest challenge for Cabestan, who already has managed to drop 1 mark in this section so far. Busto was out of there by this stage, so he's got no reference point. Cabestan is up. He's going to use a mark, though, for leaning. Hauls himself up to the top. Oh, he slipped back. That's another mark. And with time having elapsed as well, that's bad news and a failure for Albert Cabestan. He'd already accrued 1 mark, slipped twice on that top trunk. 3 marks on observation and a failure because he'd also lost out on time. Cabestan so nearly home and dry in section 1. That would have been a great start for him to move above Jaime Busto, but mistakes from both Cabestan and Busto give Adam Raga and Tony Bowe an opportunity to move clear at the top of the point standings in the final. Only 5 sections to make it count. Adam Raga, only 3rd position here last season at the site of 5 of his 8 French Grand Prix wins. Runner-up in each of the opening 2017 rounds, waiting for a mistake from rival Bowe. And Raga, of course, now has the advantage of having seen Cabestan work his way all the way through the section. Cabestan dropped a mark there, Raga didn't. So Adam Raga looking well on his way towards completing this section. We know it's possible because Cabestan made it up that step. Raga has to do the same. At the moment, he's clean. Trying to heap the pressure on Tony Bowe, who will come out after him. That's 1 mark on observation there for leaning on the top trunk to make it up. And he's just about missed out on time as well. 61 seconds. With just a fraction more alacrity, Raga could have minimised the points recorded in that section 1. So Raga rides away with 2. 1 mark on observation and 1 mark on time, and that gives Tony Bowe the opportunity to move clear. The reigning world champion, already halfway towards an 11th X-Trial World Championship title after wins in Barcelona and Vienna Neustadt, venues that have traditionally favoured him with big steps and a higher level of difficulty. Things didn't go his way, though, in qualifying. He did manage to reverse that by winning the double lane races, and that could prove crucial. Since he is last out, he's already seen Raga complete the section. Cabestan almost complete the section. So far, so good for Tony Bowe, but he has already dropped 1 mark on observation. Manages to get up the trunk, though, clean, and that's going to be a single mark score. 53 seconds for Tony Bowe, who moves 1 mark in front of Adam Raga. There was a nervous start for Bowe because he did concede a mark early in the section, and that left him with work to do. He needed to get up that trunk clean to have an opportunity to move above Raga, and he did so. Now moving on with section 2, and Jaime Busto tackling a tower of shipping containers and skips. Making it to the top is the first challenge. That's the position that Jaime Busto is at now. Makes it up onto the sump, but slips back, and the minder has to catch the front wheel. It's a 2nd consecutive fiasco for Jaime Busto. Albert Cabestan failed to capitalise on Busto's first failure. Can he capitalise on his second? As I said, the first challenge making it up to the top of this tower. The second challenge is to make it through the twists and back up from ground level through the skips. So can Cabestan succeed where Busto failed? Looking good for Cabestan, who's trying to force his weight forward and eventually gets the bike up to where he wants it, to the top of the tower, watched on by the spectators here in Marseille and cheered on as well. Good performance from Albert Cabestan, but of course he has accrued marks in making it up to the top. And this is one of the longer sections in the final, so it's not going to be easy for Cabestan to make it to the finish from here. That's another mark dropped, and he's frustrated with that one. 3 marks already for Albert Cabestan, who now must complete the section without dropping another and without exceeding the time limit, and it's game over for Albert Cabestan. And there goes the time as well, just to compound it. Albert Cabestan with an accumulation of marks, losing out in sections 1 and 2. So it's not been the outright difficulty of the section that has stopped him from succeeding in the section. It's an accumulation of marks, both on time and on observation, that's given 2 failures for Albert Cabestan. Matched with Jaime Busto so far. Adam Raga 8 marks up. Needs to minimise small errors because there's already a 1 mark difference between himself and Tony Bowe, and only 4 sections in which to try and make that back up. Adam Raga to make it to the top of the tower, does so with 1 mark for leading there. Again, a sub stop at the top of the tower on section 2. So in the same place that Albert Cabestan had dropped 2 marks, Adam Raga drops 1. Cabestan dropped 1 then here at the base of the skip. Raga briefly slips and slides, but finds his balance again. Still on 1 mark. Trying to make it up this skip climb. He's going to lose 1 mark there. Just clacking onto the bottom of the bike, and had to do so again then because he'd slipped back at the first attempt, and a mark on time as well. And that's a failure for Adam Raga because he already had 3 marks on observation, and now it looks as though he's going to jump down from the section. He doesn't want to give Tony Bowe any indications as to how to complete the rest of the section, so he comes off it sideways. It's not the difficulty level per se that the riders are struggling with so far in these opening 2 sections. It's battling all the way through without accumulating points all the way through the section. So Adam Raga dropping a 5-mark score. There's no one step that is posing the riders difficulties, as has often been the case in 2017, actually, in both Vienna Neustadt and Barcelona. There was big steps where Tony Bowe was the only rider to make it up, 5 or clean sections. And that's how Bowe managed to gain an advantage. Today, the story's been a little bit different. Efficiency has been key for Tony Bowe. 1 mark clear of Adam Raga after section 1. An opportunity to go 6 marks up on Raga here. He's still clean so far. Makes it up the skip, lift. This is looking very, very good for Tony Bowe. All of his rivals have dropped marks by this stage. Bowe is still running clean. It's going to be tight on time for the reigning world champion. He's got to rush through the closing stages. You can tell he's doing so, giving it 100% and making it 53 seconds. Tony Bowe is the first rider through section 2 and does so clean. Well, it's a familiar story so far for Tony Bowe, leading from the front, as he so often does in the X-Trial World Championship. Now moving on to section 3 with Jaime Busto. A dozen rock islands to cross here. Nothing particularly high in this section, which tests accuracy rather than strength, as these sections have so far this evening, in general, as I previously said. Jaime Busto, the 19-year-old, 2014 World Junior Champion. Also an FIM gold medalist at senior level, having won the X-Trial of Nations with Spain last year. The Basque youngster making his first final appearance at the 6th attempt in X-Trial competition. Could it also be a first X-Trial podium? Looking very strong in section 3, yet to drop a mark. Could this be his first successfully completed section? Minder trying to guide him. Busto dropping down to a mark the other side, the bike just resting on the rock, but he's made it through strong elsewhere, and it's a single mark from section 3 for Jaime Busto. He might be a little bit frustrated about that one, as he just dropped down over the final turn through the section, right towards the closing stages. Albert Cabestan next up. Oh, that's a frustrating start for him. You can hear the sump clacking against the first stone as he made it through. And that means that Cabestan is going to have to make it through that twisty section where Jaime Busto dropped a mark without doing so himself. Otherwise, he'll slip in arrears of Busto, who at the moment sits on 11. Cabestan on a net 11 as well, because he's already dropped 1 mark in this section, sat on 10 coming into it. No issues on time by the looks of things. Cabestan making it through a little bit quicker than Busto, having seen his young rival go first. This is where Busto dropped a mark. Cabestan tries to do the turn up high on the first rock. but like Busto before him, dropping down the other side, drops a mark as well. So it's going to be 2 marks for Albert Cabestan, and Jaime Busto is into a provisional podium position. Busto on 11, Cabestan on 12. Bo and Raga up front, Raga on 7, Bo on 1. Adam Raga third through section 3. 6 marks in arrears of Tony Bo, with 3 marks to make it up. And Tony Bo already looks as though he's well on his way towards victory tonight. Raga can only try and keep minimising those errors and wait for a mistake from the reigning world champion, but those mistakes so rarely come. They did in qualifying, admittedly. Raga continuing to force his way through. This is the patch that caught out both Cabestan and Busto. Raga could do with making it through clean here. Does so on the back wheel. Excellent from Adam Raga. And clean on section 3. 48 seconds. Super in terms of speed. Perfect in terms of accuracy. And the first rider clean through section 3 is Adam Raga, piling the pressure back on Tony Bo. Although that said, it's a bit of a stretch to imagine that Bo is going to be feeling too concerned. Even if he fails one of these 3 final sections, at the moment he's 6 marks up on Adam Raga. He can afford 1 error, but certainly not more than 1. 3 sections remaining to ride for Tony Bo, including this one. The winner of the opening round of the Spanish Trial Championship last weekend in Mallorca, the summer season coming soon. But for the moment, Bo focused on continually rewriting the record books in the X-Trial World Championship. Now a 50-time X-Trial Grand Prix winner, an astonishing 62 podium finishes in 73 appearances. Raga made it clean through section 3. Can Bo do the same? He does exactly the same thing as Adam Raga, but then drops a mark the other side, has to take a dab to steady himself. And that's an important moment for Adam Raga. The gap is back down to just 5. Bo frustrated. All signs of those odd errors creeping in for Tony Bo here this evening. Must be becoming nervous in the second half now of this 2017 X-Trial campaign. We're on to section 4, a series of 5 cylinders for the riders to cross. The bigger challenge will be posed by the step later on in the section. It's the height of 2 blocks. Jaime Busto 9 marks down on the leader. Anything more than a single mark score, he will be mathematically ruled out of contention for the win. More realistically, his battle at the moment with Albert Cabestan over 3rd. This is the step that I was talking about as a major challenge. You can see it's almost twice the height of the minder who's standing alongside it. Busto being urged on. 1 mark up on Albert Cabestan. Can he go further clear? The answer is no. He doesn't even make it halfway up the step, and back down to a 5-mark score in section 4. So that gives Albert Cabestan a real opportunity here. He needs a clean if he wants to remain in with an outside shot of a top 2 finish. But 3rd position, if he can overhaul Jaime Busto, would be a highly satisfactory result in the context of the veterans' battle with Gironi Fajardo for the bronze medal in 2017. Fajardo having been eliminated by Busto, of course. And Busto in the stronger position in the final so far than Cabestan. Just 1 section making the difference between the 2 riders so far. Section 3 last time out. This is the first major step that we've had tonight to challenge the riders. Absolutely no run-up as you can see. Less than the width of a tyre. Cabestan can't make it up either. If anything, slips further away than Jaime Busto before him. And it's a 5-mark score for both Busto and Cabestan. Will either Raga or Bo be able to make it through section 4 successfully? The penultimate section, Adam Raga. 5 marks is the gap between the top 2 coming into this section 4. Raga needs to narrow that deficit then if he wants to take the trial to the 5th and final section. As long as he doesn't fail here, 2nd is secured. But in a 4-round championship, he realistically needs to beat Tony Bo tonight to have a real hope of putting Bo under pressure coming into the final round next week. This the step that caught out Cabestan and Busto. Neither of them were even close. Can Raga find that extra force to try and challenge Tony Bow? 5 marks the difference between them. If Raga can make it through here, he might just be able to force an error from Bow. Raga building himself up, moving backwards, firing forward. That's brilliant from Adam Raga. Needs to stop it on the sump, of course, to steady himself. Drops a mark on leaning then. And you just heard the klaxon as well going for 60 seconds. He's not going to make it on time, but it looks as though he's going to make it through the section. The first rider to do so. 75 seconds for Adam Raga. 1 mark dropped on observation, as I said, and 1 mark dropped on time. That's 9 marks in total. And 7 marks now between the top 2. So it's match points effectively for Tony Bow, who can win the X-Trial with a section to spare if he betters Adam Raga's 2 mark tally through this section 4. So a mark to play with for Bow. Is this the moment that he puts one hand on the World Championship trophy for 2017? Raga cost himself a mark making it up this step. Can Bow go clean? He's worked quicker through this section so far as well, so looking good on time. Bow makes it up. It's a mark for leaning, exactly the same way as Adam Raga before him. But Raga took 75 seconds to make it through this section. Bow at the moment is inside on time. Bow, if he can make it through in 60 seconds, wins here tonight in Marseille. It's Tony Bow who wins a 10th French Grand Prix and with it puts one hand on the trophy in 2017. The 3rd successive victory then for Tony Bow. But the 3rd and final step on the podium still yet to be decided. Jaime Busto first up through the stones. This one of the regular sections here in Marseille. Seemingly a homage to Neolithic monuments. 2-metre stones building up to a grand rock lintel that marks the finale. Jaime Busto rode as a wildcard in Marseille last season and finished last. What a turnaround this year. Guaranteed his best career finish with at least 4th tonight. And with a single mark advantage over Albert Cabestan so far, a clean for Busto would guarantee him a first podium finish at World Championship level. This is the step that I was talking about, that grand rock lintel. This is going to be tough to make it up for all of the riders. Jaime Busto so far so good in section 5. This for 3rd step on the podium. He makes it up but slips back down. Disappointment for Jaime Busto. But he does still have an opportunity to make it on the podium if Cabestan also gets it wrong in section 5. But it's back in Cabestan's hands now. He'll snatch 3rd place here with anything other than a 5-mark score. 21 marks is now the total to beat for Albert Cabestan, who sits on 17. So even if he concedes 3 marks making it through this section, he will still have the 3rd and final step on the podium. It's certainly been very close for 3rd position here tonight. Cabestan and Busto recording the same totals in sections 1, 2 and 4. Section 3, the differentiating factor so far, putting 1 mark between them in favour of Busto. Will Cabestan be able to make it up this step? And onto the 3rd step of the podium here in Marseille. Bow and Raga, the top 2 here tonight. Who will be 3rd in the classification? This is the moment that will decide it. Cabestan clean so far, has to get up if he wants to beat Busto, and does so! Albert Cabestan takes 3rd position here tonight with a clean in section 5. Well, he left it late to get ahead of Busto, but he's done so in the end, and that decides our 3 podium positions. Bow, Raga and Cabestan in that order. Jaime Busto misses out despite an excellent fight in the final here this evening. So with that result deciding the remaining spots on the podium, the 2 remaining outings just for pride, personal satisfaction, of course, to round off the show. And it's been closer in terms of the race for first position here this evening, partially because of the smaller number of sections. Didn't quite go down to this final section though. Tony Bow has managed to wrap it up before the last section in each of the rounds in 2017. Adam Raga then, to see if he can replicate Albert Cabastan's successful clean in section 5.
Marseille, on veut vous entendre. On vous entend pas Marseille,
Up he goes with a little bit of dust coming off the stone as he makes it to the top, and it's clean for Adam Raga, who waves goodbye to Marseille, who waved goodbye to his chances of victory in section 4. But at least a confidence booster at the end of the night for Adam Raga. His second clean of this final. Only stopped in one section, which was section 2, which is the one that really made the difference between Bow and Raga. Raga 1 mark superior in section 3, 1 mark inferior in section 4 and section 1. But things would be much closer now. Oh, Tony Bow stalled it early in section 5. And that's a 5-mark score for Tony Bow. A bit of an anti-climax for the fans here in Marseille. He starts up the machine, and it looks as though he's going to continue on through the section just for the sake of show. So full credit to Tony Bow, because he didn't have to complete the section. He'd already won here tonight. Imagine if that had happened with victory on the line here this evening. It's 5 marks already for Tony Bow, but he will continue on and he will complete section 5. As part of his celebration almost here this evening. It hasn't been a faultless display from Tony Bow, no doubt about that. He made mistakes during qualifying and a few errors during the final, but they weren't punished by Adam Raga, whose failure in section 2 kept him back from Bow, who wins by just a single mark. The top 2 positions looking slightly closer in the points than they were in real terms, with victory wrapped up with a section to spare for Tony Bow. It was a strange one, really. I started well, going through the trunks, which were quite difficult, but a stupid dropped mark for sumping made things a little bit more complicated and cost me an opportunity to take an advantage in the race for third. I tried to respond, but the sections were difficult, particularly section 2, where only Tony made it through, and they were long as well. So we kept rowing on, and when the opportunity came in the final section, I gave it everything I had to take the third position, taking advantage of Gironi's bad day and arriving a little more comfortably to the final round. I'm very happy with today's race because I won qualifying and then I was very close to winning in the final. I've ridden well. I only made one bad mistake in section 2, but I feel comfortable. I'm riding well and I have to be happy about that. It was a shame not to win because it would have tightened up the championship, but I'm happy overall and we'll keep on working. It hasn't been an easy day, really. I've suffered and was nervous, but it was a great victory. Recovering from qualifying where I was only third, I managed to recover in the double-lane races to go out last in the last lap and watch the others. Then I was able to open a good margin. A small error in the final section, but I've ridden well. It was a difficult trial to open a lot of ground, and now we go to the last round, not needing to win, which is very important. The third round of the season clears up most of the battles in the championship standings, with only the race between Takahisa Fujinami and James Dable for 5th still really up for grabs going into the final round in Nice. Meanwhile, at the top of the standings, Tony Bow's victory means he only needs a top 5 finish at the final round to secure an incredible 11th world title.